In the far reaches of the Andromeda expanse, where stars drift in silence and time folds like velvet, there stood a lighthouse, not built of stone, but of crystalline alloy and gentle gravity fields. It hovered in a stable orbit over the edge of a collapsing nebula, casting a beam of soft silver light across the dark almost of the galaxy. It was a myth. But to freighter pilots, deep space explorers, and dreamers, the lighthouse was a sanctuary. It was said to guide the lost, the lonely, and those who had drifted too far from home. On board the lighthouse lived one soul, a keeper named Oral. Oral wasn't sure how long he'd been there. Time moves differently near the nebula, stretched and curved. His hair had turned silver like the light he tended. His days were spent checking stabilizers, clearing dust from the solar sails, and speaking softly to the station's AI, a quiet companion named Luma. Another pulse-emitted keeper, Luma said one evening. Signal beacon holds steady. No vessels in range. Oral nodded, sipping from a steaming cup of Jura root tea. Even lost ships need time to find their way. He stood by the observation window, watching the stars flicker like old candles in the distance. Andromeda's great spiral curved across the sky, a gentle reminder of how small he was in its dance. Then, something new at a single blink. A faint reply in the darkness. A coded signal, ancient and fractured, like a voice long buried in the void that Oral's eyes narrowed. Luma, are we receiving a distress call? Yes, Luma replied. Origin, unknown. Encryption, pre-collapse language structure. Signal pattern, human. Oral set down his cup. For the first time in years, the silence had spoken. The signal pulsed again, soft and flickering, like a candle fighting wind. Oral leaned closer to the console as Luma began decoding the fractured stream. Attempting linguistic reconstruction, the AI said. Fragments appear to be early interstellar trade standard. Emotive markers present. Partial reconstruction possible. On the hollow screen, static danced and broke into shapes. A woman's face appeared, flickering with distortions. Her eyes were wide and luminous, her voice broken and laced with static. This is Iris Sorel, research vessel Lyra's Wake. We, systems critical, drifting near, coordinates unknown. If anyone can hear me, please respond. Then silence. Oral stared at the screen, heart gently thudding in his chest. The name Lyra's Wake stirred something. An old archive, a mission lost nearly a century ago. A science expedition sent beyond the galactic rim. Never heard from again. Luma, he said softly. Can we triangulate the source? I believe so, Luma replied. Signal echoes suggest an origin point within the collapsing layers of the Altari Veil. 6 hours at maximum thrust. Oral hesitated. He hadn't left the lighthouse in years. It was his post, his oath, his rhythm. But the thought of a voice, a human voice, cutting through the void was enough to stir something old inside him. Something warm. He placed a gloved hand on the console. Prepare the shuttle. We're going to find her. Outside, the nebula pulsed like a sleeping star. And somewhere deep within it, a light flickered, lost but not yet gone. The shuttle Lucent emerged from the lighthouse's lower docking bay like a silver petal loose into the wind. Oral sat at the helm, hands steady on the controls, eyes fixed ahead. Luma's voice gently echoed through the cabin. All systems are nominal. Thruster capacity at 94%. Stabilizers aligned for travel through the Altari Vale's turbulence. Outside, the edge of the nebula loomed, a roiling cloud of iridescent gas that curled and folded like slow-moving tides. Colors bled into one another, teal and gold, indigo and flame. Within, radiation storms whispered across the fabric of space like ghosts. I haven't flown through the veil since before the collapse, Oral murmured, checking his navigation route. Let's hope it still remembers me. It likely does not, Luma replied with her usual calm candor. But I will. Oral smiled faintly as the shuttle pushed into the first layers of the veil. The ship trembled gently, wrapped in electromagnetic currents. Static crackled briefly across the windshield, and Oral's display dimmed before adjusting to the interference that he reached for the broadcast panel. Iris Sorel, this is Keeper Oral of the Andromeda Lighthouse. I've received your signal. If you can hear this, hold on. I'm coming. Only silence answered, but the beacon continued to blink in rhythmic patterns. Steady, persistent. Not a distress signal anymore, but a trail that he leaned back slightly, letting the stars blur past the edge of the nebula cloud. For years he had watched others come and go, tended the beacon, stood his post without question. Now, for the first time in ages, he was drifting forward into unknown light. And somewhere ahead, in the belly of the storm, a voice was waiting to be heard again 0.4 hours into the Altari Vale. The turbulence eased. Oral adjusted the shuttle's heading, eyes locked on the faint, rhythmic ping echoing through the ship's systems. Signal clarity is improving, Luma reported. Distance to origin, 47,000 kilometers. Vessel likely stationary. Oral leaned forward. Can you generate a visual? A pause. Then the forward screen blinked once and revealed a haunting sight. The remains of a ship floating amid the pastel gas clouds. Its hull was cracked in several places, panels missing or warped by time and radiation. Lights flickered along its spine, feeble but alive. The name etched across the side read, Lyra's Wake. There she is, Oral whispered. The shuttle coasted closer. As the Vale's gases parted around the wreck, the surrounding silence deepened. It felt reverent, like approaching a cathedral lost beneath the sea. Life signs? Oral asked. One faint biosignature, Luma confirmed. Human, unstable but present, deep within the ship's core. Without hesitation, Oral began suiting up. He moved slowly, methodically, his old training rising in his bones. Oxygen, pressure seals, light relay. A soft chime told him the docking latch had aligned. The shuttle connected with a worn-out airlock on the Lyra's Wake, and Oral stepped inside. The corridor was dim and quiet, lit only by blinking emergency strips. Dust floated like snow in zero gravity. The walls bore scorch marks and impact dents. Signs of a ship that had fought to survive for far too long. As Oral drifted forward, the lights seemed to respond to his presence. One by one, they flickered awake, illuminating his path. Then a whisper through his helmet. Someone there? Oral froze. The voice was faint, real. I'm here, he said gently. I've come to find you. Oral floated through the narrow corridor, boots brushing the walls, his suit lights casting soft circles in the gloom. The ship creaked softly around him, not in protest, but like something exhaling after a long slumber. "Luma," he whispered, "track the biosignature's location." "Level 4, cryogenics deck," she replied. "Life support is flickering. You'll need to move quickly." "I'm already moving." The corridor opened into a wider chamber, once a laboratory, now dark and strewn with debris. Screens hung at odd angles, cracked but still glowing faintly. On one of them, Oral spotted her face again, Iris Sorel. A log looped silently behind her wide, exhausted eyes. "If this reaches anyone, we were studying the Veil's gravitational seams. Something went wrong, systems failed, the others gone now. I stayed to keep the ship from drifting too far into the fold." The recording crackled and ended in silence. Oral floated closer, touching the screen gently, as though it might respond to his empathy. "Still alive," he said softly, still holding on. He reached the cryogenics deck hatch and pried it open with a soft hiss of releasing pressure. Inside, the cold was immediate, making his breath fog against the inner helmet glass. There, surrounded by faded light and frost, floated a cryopod, its surface frosted over, the biomonitor on its side blinking slowly. Inside, curled gently beneath a thick layer of condensation, was Ira. Her chest rose shallowly. Her eyes twitched beneath closed lids. She was alive. Oral tapped his comm. "Luma, prepare the shuttle's med bay. We found her." He knelt beside the pod, placing a hand gently against the glass. "You held on long enough," he whispered. "Now I'll hold on for you." The cryopod hummed softly, warming its occupant with a gradual rise in temperature. Oral stayed beside it, watching as the frost faded and color slowly returned to Ira's cheeks. Her eyelids fluttered, not yet ready to open, but her vital signs strengthened with each passing minute. Back aboard the Lucent, Luma prepared the med bay. Lights soft, heat gentle, the air perfumed faintly with lavender moss filtration. The environment was designed not for emergency, but for peace. A place where someone could wake without fear. "Pod seal is disengaging," Oral reported, voice steady. "I'll bring her aboard now." Carefully, he guided the pod through the corridor, past the scars of the old ship, and into the shuttle's clean hold. As the airlock cycled shut behind them, the silence of the Lyra's wake was replaced with the soft pulse of the shuttle's engines, and the warm, persistent heartbeat of life continuing. In the med bay, Oral gently placed her on the diagnostic bed. Robotic arms moved slowly, scanning and adjusting. Luma's voice returned in a whisper. "Her condition is stable. She will wake soon." Oral sat beside her, removing his helmet. His silver hair clung damply to his temples, and his face, usually serene, now glowed faintly with hope. For a long moment, there was nothing but the quiet sounds of soft beeps and gentle air currents. Then, a breath. Ira's eyes opened slowly. They were clouded with disorientation, but they fixed on Oral with recognition. Her lips moved. "You found me." Oral smiled, voice no louder than a lullaby. "Yes." The light never stopped shining. Tears gathered in her eyes, not from fear, but relief. She was no longer alone. Ira lay quietly beneath a heated blanket in the med bay, her strength slowly returning. Outside the shuttle's viewport, the altari veil pulsed softly, its colors dimming now that they were leaving its densest clouds. Oral sat nearby, his presence calm and watchful. He didn't speak unless she did, but she could feel the comfort in his silence. There was something soothing about him, like a star that had never burned out, only grown steadier. After a time, she turned to look at him. How long was I asleep? Oral offered a gentle nod. 81 years, give or take. But time moves differently out here. Ira blinked. My crew, his eyes softened. I only found you. She closed her eyes. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was understanding. Grief didn't need noise. I used to watch The Signal, she whispered after a while, voice thin. Even when everything failed, the lighthouse kept shining. It gave me something to hold on to. Oral smiled gently. It shines for those who are lost, but maybe also for those who are waiting. The ship sailed on, steady and sure, the veil thinning around them. Stars reappeared, bright, quiet companions returning to the sky. The closer they got to the lighthouse, the more its beacon grew, a silver thread leading them home. You're the keeper? Ira asked, voice clearer now. I am, but maybe not forever. She looked at him, surprised. You've been alone a long time, she said. He nodded. And you? She nodded back. Long enough. Their eyes met, and in the quiet between those glances, something new began. Not urgent, not loud, just the warmth of presence after the cold of solitude. The lighthouse drew near, its soft light spilling across the shuttle's hull. A home suspended in the dark, waiting for both of them. The Lucent glided into the dock beneath the lighthouse like a leaf settling on water. As the magnetic clamps engaged and the ship hissed in a stillness, Oral turned to Ira, who now sat upright, her strength returning in quiet waves. Outside, the stars shone like soft eyes watching from afar. Ready? He asked gently. She smiled, small but sincere. Yes, I want to see it with my own eyes. They stepped out into the heart of the lighthouse, a warm, domed chamber aglow with soft golden light. Crystalline walls pulsed faintly, echoing the heartbeat of the great beacon. It was not a place of machinery and steel, but one of silence and care. Ira's eyes widened. It's beautiful. This is the pulse chamber, Oral said, his voice low with reverence. The core of the station. It speaks to the edge of space, to every drifting vessel, to every wandering soul. Some hear it with radios, others with memory. She walked slowly around the center console, letting her fingers brush the curved rail, the floor humming beneath her steps. It didn't feel like a place built. It felt like a place grown from the universe's quietest wishes. Do you ever feel like this place is alive? She asked. I do, Oral said. Sometimes I speak to it, even when Luma's asleep. Ira chuckled softly. I spoke to my ship too, not to keep systems running, but to keep from feeling like I was disappearing. They sat beside the beacon's core, letting its quiet pulse wrap around them. No more alarms. No danger. Just two survivors, warmed by starlight and silver glow. Would it be all right? Ira asked after a long moment. If I stayed? Oral looked at her, and in his eyes was a quiet, undeniable joy. This light was never meant to shine for one alone. Days passed, or maybe weeks. Time of the lighthouse did not move in straight lines. Instead, It drifted like the tides of a quiet moon. Ira spent much of it exploring the corridors and chambers of the station. The place had a serenity unlike any ship or colony she had ever known. There was a warmth in the walls, as if the lighthouse itself had been waiting for her. Oral watched her with the calm presence of someone who had grown used to silence, and now found joy in soft footsteps echoing down once empty halls. He taught her how to tend to the beacon systems, how to polish the solar sails when the nebula dust grew too thick. She showed him how to update old logs, how to weave human language into the AI's quiet hum. They worked side by side in peace, and when the work was done, they read old records aloud to each other in the gardens above the pulse chamber. Some nights they sat in the observatory, sharing warm tea while watching distant comets write silver brushstrokes across the sky. "I used to think survival was enough," Iris said one evening. "But now I think it's connection, being seen, being remembered." Oral nodded. "The light reaches others, but sometimes it's meant to find its way back to you." Luma's voice chimed softly from the console nearby. "Two signal pulses are stronger than one. Transmission range has improved by 37%. They both laughed, softly. Genuinely, IT was not the kind of life either had planned. It wasn't the arc of a grand mission or the return to a home left behind. But it was something more precious, a quiet harbor, born from rescue and held steady by shared silence. The lighthouse shine on, gentler now, but warmer. In the heart of its glow, two keepers watched the stars. The days began to form patterns, not out of necessity, but comfort. Oral would wake before Ira, tending the outer pulse regulators and clearing the morning layer of cosmic frost from the windows. Ira would join him not long after, her presence light but constant, like a melody remembered. Together, they kept the lighthouse breathing. Sometimes, ships passed through the system, distant freighters coasting on long trajectories, unaware of the small lives watching from the edge of the veil. Luma would broadcast a soft beacon tone, and the ships would adjust course ever so slightly, unknowingly guided by the light. Ira began adding touches to the station. Hand-drawn star maps on the walls, tiny floating lanterns that drifted through the garden chambers. She even painted the viewing dome's inner rim with a quiet spiral of constellations she had memorized during her isolation aboard Lyra's Wake Point one evening. As they sat sipping tea, a question drifted softly between them. "Do you ever miss Earth?" Ira asked, eyes half closed against the glow of distant suns. Oral took a slow breath. "Sometimes. I miss the idea of it more than the place." Ira nodded. "Me too. I think what I missed more than anything was someone waiting." Oral looked to her gently, his voice warm. "You're not adrift anymore. Neither are you. Outside, the beacon pulsed. Not desperate or lonely, but steady. Patient, like a heartbeat. The lighthouse no longer watched the stars alone. Two lives, once scattered like dust, now shared orbit. And the silence of space had never felt more full. One quiet morning, as the twin suns began to rise over the nebula's edges, the peaceful routine was gently broken. Luma's voice chimed softly through the station. "Keeper Oral, a new signal has been detected, originating beyond the veil, at coordinates previously unrecorded." Ira looked up from the maps she was organizing. Could it be another lost ship? Oral nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps, or a new voice waiting to be heard. They moved to the observation deck, the soft hum of the station filling the space between them. Outside, the stars gleamed as if holding their breath. Luma projected the signal, a delicate, melodic pattern of pulses unlike any standard distress call. It was almost a song. Someone is reaching out. Ira whispered. Oral's eyes softened with hope. Then we must answer. Together. They prepared the Lucent for departure once more. Not out of duty, but because the light inside them had grown too strong to remain still. As they left the lighthouse's gentle orbit, the beacon's pulse followed them, a steady rhythm guiding them forward beyond the veil. The stars waited. And this time, they would not go alone. The Lucent glided silently beyond the edges of the Altari veil, the nebula's swirling colors fading behind them like a dream dissolving with dawn. Oral and Ira sat side by side, watching as the stars stretched out, vast, endless, and full of quiet promise. The new signal grew stronger with every light year, a luminous thread weaving through space, drawing them onward. It was no longer just a beacon of distress, but a call for connection, for discovery, for something beyond survival. Oral reached out, his fingers brushing Ira's hand, a simple touch that carried the weight of years and the light of new beginnings. Whatever lies ahead, he said softly, we carry the lighthouse with us, not just as keepers, but as its light. Ira smiled, eyes shining with unspoken dreams. Then let's follow the song. The stars sang their ancient melodies as the shuttle moved deeper into the unknown, two lights entwined against the vast dark. And in that moment, between the fading veil and the boundless cosmos, the journey was not about endings, but the endless grace of discovery. The lighthouse, after all, was never just a place that IT was a promise that even in the darkest reaches of space, light would always find a way to shine. The end,